Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Flower Files. I'm Liza, flower farmer, florist, and educator here at Wildly Native Flower Farm. And this is a very behind the scenes space here at Wildly Native. This is our processing barn. I'm tucked in here right after we got back from farmers market this weekend, and I really wanted to talk to you about how to set up farmers market so that it literally stops your customers in their tracks. I thought this was a really important episode because as I walked through farmers market after we were set up, because not gonna lie, I had to run up the street and grab a couple things. That fresh asparagus caught my eye, my favorite soup, and we're not even gonna talk about the baked goods that I'm slightly addicted to, as well as the dog treats and everything else. There are some booths that really stand out, and I wanted to talk about the ways that make it engaging and how you can build a booth. It doesn't matter what you're selling. You could sell soap, you could sell dog treats, you could sell mushrooms, you could sell craft items, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what makes a booth engaging. So for us, flowers are not just a hobby, it's a business, it can be a lifestyle, and it can be the thing that completely changes how you spend your time and your money. But if you're doing a farmer's market, it's only if you understand how to grow them well and how to sell them in a way that actually makes sense. So that's what we're going to do here today. There's no fluff. I'm going to skip the Pinterest pretty perspectives and all of those, visions of what it should be. I want to talk about what actually works, and we're going to talk a little bit about it at the market and in life in general. So clearly, I've pulled back the curtain in here. I'm going to pull back the curtain in regards to talking about some marketing and things like that. If you've ever stood behind a farmer's market table and felt awkward, and you're kind of standing there and you're looking at the person across the way who has something similar to you, but they have all the people and maybe you don't have as many people, it's a little uncomfortable. It's a little awkward, and not gonna lie, I do plants. So sometimes a lot of people all at once can feel a little overwhelming. And then I get in the farmer's market and I'm standing there and I'm looking and I'm going, why aren't they looking at my stuff? Like, what did I do wrong? Sometimes it could be your vibe, but sometimes maybe it's the way your booth is set up, because why are people walking past me? Why are they buying over there? Do I just need better flowers? Okay, so stop. Don't do that. Because it's not your flowers, it's probably your setup, your messaging, and maybe your energy. So we're going to talk exactly about things that we've learned over the years of doing farmers markets and how that changes. How do we get them to look? How do we get them to pause? How do we get them to come over? And how do we then get them to actually buy? So this is a fair warning in advance. This episode may step on a few toes because some of the things that I've seen or that we've done at markets, they're not helping you or me sell. And they're actually kind of pushing customers away with like an undercurrent that you're not even aware of. So I want to fix that. I want to talk about it. I want to be very realistic. At farmers market, I don't think people come to farmers market. Most people don't go to farmers market and say, today I'm going to go buy flowers. There's so much to see at farmers market. Everything is pretty. The produce is shiny. The tablecloths look nice. There's all these displays. There's people. There's all this stuff happening. There's different colored tents, and some people have flags. And farmers market can be a lot because there's so much to see. And the baked goods, they smell amazing. Sometimes you have hot, fresh sandwiches. Sometimes you have specialty coffees. Sometimes sometimes the specialty dog treats smell good. Sometimes there's birdseed and there's crafts and there's so much to see and there's so much to do. It's an entire experience. And people really are there for a lot of different reasons. Maybe it's just to walk the dog. Maybe it's just to get out and get things for a party they're having. Maybe they're looking for a gift. Maybe they are looking for something handmade. There's handmade and homegrown things everywhere. But how do you make yours stand out? And that's what's important, because you're not competing on pretty. Everything's pretty. You're competing on attention. You're competing on curiosity, clarity, and experience. So most of the time people walk through a farmer's market and they're not thinking, I'm going to go buy flowers. They're thinking, I need bread, I need something for dinner, I've got to grab a gift, I'm just walking around. So if your booth is a little more passive, if it's quiet, if it is blending in, they're going to walk past you. They'll smile and nod and keep going. So maybe it's not you personally, maybe it's the way things are set up. And it's not because your flowers or your produce or your items aren't good. It's because you didn't give them a reason to stop. So let's figure out how to give them a reason, okay? You want that booth to be a magnet. You want it to be magnetic and you want people to be pulled in. So I think this is where I see the biggest disconnect. Some folks have all of this stuff and it's not maybe organized. Maybe there's just so much and they can't tell what's going on. Sometimes I've seen it where it's really chaotic. It's like buckets here, buckets there, buckets all over the place, and things are all mixed up. And it's in people's brains. They're trying to figure out how to navigate that. If you've got buckets on the ground and there's no structure and there's no height and there's no focal, it feels like work for people to even shop there. And if it feels like work, people aren't going to want to do that. Height variation is something that we learned very quickly. If you have a table and your table is set, you could have a beautiful tablecloth. But if you don't have height variation to pull people in a way that is still organized, you want people's eye to move through your products. There's a vendor up from us. They have a beautiful tablecloth that they put down every week. They sell produce, and the way they have things organized, they have all of their produce organized in different containers and different buckets. There's another vendor further up who also has finished goods, so like jams and jellies and things like that, as well as other things that are in like a fresh setup as well. So they have two different products, but they are set up differently. So you want to have those tall things, you can stack crates, you can have lots of different display things. You want to have, for us, for flowers, we want to have a tall piece, we want to have a mid-level section, and then we want a low grab and go space as well. I've seen so many tables where everything is just shoved together up front and there it is, and it's almost like a wall. And it's a little overwhelming and people don't even know where to start. So I think if they don't know where to start, then they're not going to start at all, quite honestly. You also want a clear entry point. So one of the things we've noticed is there's a couple different perspectives. Some people have, as I said, that table where it's shoved up front and everything is stacked and like, here's the tent and here's our stuff. And that can be a little overwhelming, so they don't know where to start. But if you set it up as a U instead, then people come in and then they're trapped. So if you have other people who are wanting to get in, you have to figure out a way to have some type of flow. Because if the booth area looks packed, they're not going to stop. They're just not going to come in. So you need a clear, this is where you come in, this is where you pick the things, and your table setup really matters. Another thing that I learned from farmers markets that I didn't think of, dogs. You want to make sure that what you have out front, dogs aren't going to want to pee on. I told you it was going to be very real in this. I have had to wash tablecloths more times than I can count because a dog just, the owner is excited and they're buying a product and maybe they're at the booth right next to you. But if you have something, just watch for those dogs peeing on things. So make sure things that are lower are not something that are going to be damaged or hurt. I like to make sure I have containers that I can easily wash. So if you create that U shape, you could actually create some friction for folks not being able to come in. You want to be able to have a flow so people are comfortable and they feel welcome to actually come in and see you. One thing that stops them. So every booth needs a, wait, what is that? Kind of thing. They need a something. They need something bold. They need something unique. They need something unexpected. something that interrupts their pattern of strolling down that lane or down that market lane, that market section. Let me clarify this though, because when we first started, we had everything. We were like, if we make it, if we have it, we're going to take it. We had jewelry, we had pedal pantry, we had fresh flowers, we had crafty items. And our crafty items, we had a lot of crafty items. And people were actually confused. They were like, are you a flower farm? Are you an artisan? Are you culinary? Like, who are you? What are you doing? And while it's really neat, and I'm so proud that we have the diversity, people know that we grow flowers. So it took them a long time to understand that these flowers in this bouquet are for pretty. This is really nice and this is really pretty. This bouquet is actually full of culinary florals. So anything in here, this is an edible bouquet. So if you're doing something fancy, here's the bouquet that you need. So it was a little bit confusing at first. And we learned that people don't need an edible bouquet. They want the culinary florals in containers ready to go. So that was a little bit less work for us, and it was a bit of a learning curve for us to figure out how to sell those culinary florals. I think people also had a hard time trying to figure out like what do you do? Like people would literally ask, so what do you do? And that became very, very difficult for us to try to work with. So it took us some time to learn those pieces. So you have about 3 seconds. That's it. They scan, they decide, and they move on. So here's what doesn't work. When you have items that are super tiny that they can't see, it's a really big commitment to like come in and look harder. That's really tough if you have something small like jewelry. If people are open to looking at jewelry, they're going to be right there. But if they're not sure, that may be something that's difficult. So you have to be creative and figure out a way to bring them in. If you have tiny little bouquets that people can't see, if you've got muted colors that maybe people aren't going to see, if your flower bundles are wrapped high and the flowers are tucked inside and they can't see them, or if your flower bundles are wrapped but they're too low in the bucket and they can't see them. You need lots of signage. You need so much signage. You need signage for everything. Another thing we've learned, don't sit down. It's a weird dynamic. If you're standing up and you're moving, people are much more likely to have a conversation with you. But if you're sitting down and if you're on your phone, if you're doing paperwork, if you're on your computer, if you're doing anything that makes it look like you're not engaged with the moment, people don't want to talk to you. So what does work? Color block. If you're doing flowers, if you're doing plants, color block your items, because people are going to say, I like pink, or wow, that purple is really pretty, or look at those muted whites. That's perfect. Exactly what I need. Don't do rainbow chaos. Do intentional grouping. Simple signage, cut flowers and then the price. Cut flowers, grown local. $10 bouquets, build your own. Clarity sells, confusion, that walks away. You personally, how is your body language? You are part of the display. If you're sitting, if you're closed off, if you're distracted, if you're talking to another vendor and you're just not there, people feel that. So stand, be present, smile, be aware, but don't be creepy. Match their energy, okay? So don't scare people off with forced small talk. Read them. Some want to chat, some absolutely don't. Match their energy. So once they're walking up and they've paused, how do we get them to come in? So stopping them is step 1. Getting them to walk further in is step 2. And this is kind of where people sometimes freeze a little bit because they don't want to be salesy, they don't want to be pushy, but there's a fine line between salesy and welcoming. So what do? Eye contact, smile, and just acknowledge that they're humans, or pet their dog. That works too. So low pressure openers. These were cut yesterday. They'll last all week. Those are my favorite this week. My favorite thing, and when it comes to flowers, is, oh my gosh, smell these. You would not believe how much they smell. Give them a reason to touch. Hand them a bouquet. Let them feel the stems. Once they touch it, that changes everything. Okay, so let's turn those browsers into buyers, because this is where your money is made. You want to remove any decision fatigue. Too many choices equals no purchase. Have a couple different price points, a 15, a 25, a 35, and then you're done. So you want to have them build some confidence. You want them to understand little tips and hints, and that makes them really feel vested in it, basically. So you could say things like, hey, these will last 5 to 7 days, or make sure when you put them in the vase, don't forget to change your water, or something like, these are super low maintenance flowers. You're selling certainty, and you're giving them a little tip or hint. Give them a reason to say yes. So give them a super simple yes moment. So, do you like bright colors or do you like soft colors? Is this for you or is it a gift? Now you're making them actively decide. And you can also normalize the purchase by saying things like, oh my gosh, people are grabbing these every week. It's amazing. Or, you know what? You're getting one of our most popular ones. People follow other behaviors. What's the energy of your booth is another thing to anticipate as well. So this is the secret. Your booth actually has an energy. If you personally are stressed, frustrated, desperate, people definitely feel that. And then they kind of tend to leave because they don't know what to do with that. But when your booth feels calm or confident or welcoming or happy, people stay. So common mistakes that I see overcrowding, too much stuff shoved all together because you're trying to get it to be in this space. And then if it's packed in there really tight, it's awkward to take it out. And I'm thinking probably more on the produce side for this, but if you have a container and it's really packed with, say, lettuce, for example, and they're having a hard time getting it out of the container, then I've seen people be uncomfortable trying to pull things out and either ask for help if they're not busy, or if they're too busy, they walk away. I think people are respectful, and what they're trying to do is maybe not damage the product that they're trying to purchase. If you don't have pricing listed, that is, sometimes people feel like it's a communication tactic. Well, I won't put pricing on and then people have to talk to me. But then it's not transparent, and then people don't know what they should be listing. Like, it just makes it very uncomfortable for the consumer. Well, I don't know how much that costs. Like, that's really pretty. And I'm sure we've all had those moments where we pick something up and we're like, oh my gosh, I love this. And then you find out the price and you're like, oh, and you quickly put it back down. And you want to avoid that. You also don't want to ignore people. You want to make sure that you're saying hello. You want to make sure that you're engaging. You want to wait for them to decide to a certain extent, because you don't want to be pushy, but it's also okay for you to kind of guide them a little bit. People enjoy a little bit of guidance, because flowers and produce, while some of it sells itself, not all of it is going to sell itself. So you need to sell them. So I want to bring this together a little bit more with looking at how do we take all of this information and put it together, because this isn't about, oh wow, you need all of these rare flowers that are unique and different and have this great big grand piece, but it's not also about having a great big giant booth. You don't have to have a huge booth. You could have multiple booths stacked together if that's how that market works and you're willing to pay for multiple booths, that's fine. It's not about being loud. It's not about being in your face. It's about having intentional design. It's about having super clear messaging. And it's truly at the base of all of this, it's about human connection. You want ways and reasons for people to stop. And that's what matters. Because when they stop and when they feel heard and when they feel welcomed and when they feel connected with, that's what makes them buy. So if you've been feeling frustrated at markets, if you've felt like you've been doing everything right, but it's not working, this is your message to shift, because it's not just about growing better flowers, but it's about creating an experience, because the experience is what people remember. So as you walk down that aisle of the market and you're looking at all the smells, I guess you're smelling all the smells, and you're looking at all of the colors, and you're imagining all the different ways that you can buy things and use things and enjoy those cookies and baked goods. You want your customers to want to come back, and that's what matters. So if you're loving these conversations, make sure you follow along with us on the Flower Files, because we've got a lot more coming on how actually turn flowers into profit. We have a lot more information about how flowers are just fun. And if you want a little more behind the scenes and a little more personality, try checking out my personal Instagram, Liza the Flower Farmer. I'm also on Threads, and I don't know, we're doing all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you engage and follow along with us, because I just love to hear what people have to say. So, all right, that's it for today's episode. Now, go make your booth impossible to walk past.